The Seahawks dropped one on the road yesterday in Los Angeles to the best team in the NFC by 2 points with a game-winning field goal coming up just short and wide right from 61 yards. If that was the headline, if that was the story, and that was the only story, you'd all feel pretty good about that, wouldn't you? In fact, many of you told me before the game that an outcome exactly like that would be not only acceptable, but yet another sign that there are greater things ahead for this ascending Seahawks team. But that's not how we're feeling today, is it? That's not the story. It's Sam Darnold's meltdown, 4 interceptions, can't beat the Rams, can't win against good teams, seeing ghosts. Well, coming into the game, I thought the biggest matchup was Mike Macdonald against Sean McVay, right? Mike Macdonald was called the Sean McVay of defense when he was hired. And in fact, that's the thumbnail that I used in our preview show that I did on Friday with Rams creator Jake Ellenbogen. And Mike Macdonald clearly won that matchup, holding the Rams to 249 yards. Their only lower output than that is when they played that decimated Ravens team that didn't even resemble themselves, and they just didn't have to keep their foot on the gas. Held them to 12 first downs, a season low by a lot. And yet that's not the storyline, because while the Rams did score 3 touchdowns, 2 of them came directly off of Darnold interceptions, creating short fields for the Rams, giving them an early lead and altering perhaps the Seahawks offensive game plan. So instead of sitting here today talking about how a close loss against a good team means the Seahawks are this close, we're talking about maybe the quarterback is the problem, again, as we have for the last several years. And as one would expect, many fans are overreacting to this one game, some even going so far as to say that Sam is not our guy, not the answer at quarterback. Well, today I'll talk about that, and I'll pose the question of, was Sam Darnold given the best opportunity to succeed yesterday? Not going to be completely dismissive, not going to deflect, not going to make excuses for him. He's not making any excuses for himself today, but maybe the blame deserves to be spread around just a little bit. There's no way around it. Yesterday sucked. How do we get past it? How did they get past it? What happened and what might the adjustments be? And is there a reason to still believe that there are better days ahead? That's what we're going to talk about today, like it or not, on Seahawks Forever.
Welcome to the Seahawks Forever podcast. In-depth analysis on everything Seahawks. And now, here's your host, Dan Viens.
Lots to talk about today. Before I do, just want to remind you about the guys at Fast Fashion Brewing down on First Avenue in Soto in Seattle, right next door to Hooverville, across the street from Showbox Soto. They got some great accolades this week, being named their Crop Top Bavarian Pilsner, named one of the top 20 beers in the nation by one leading magazine for 2025. So go by and check that out. And that is just the beginning. They have so many tasty beers. And say hi to Matt Storm. If you happen to roll in there, let him know that you watch the show. Also, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Please hit that thumbs up. It just lets more people on YouTube see the video. If you want to support me in any other way as a full-time independent content creator, all those ways are listed and linked down below in the description. And get over to nwforever.com. That'll take you to the Patreon. Sign up there. Get in on the Discord. We are now in the semifinals of the Bracket of Boom, where you get to choose a video topic for me to produce later this month. We have a lot to talk about today. As I record this, no update yet on Gray Zabel. He left the game yesterday in the second half with what looked like a serious knee injury. Now, here's the good news, I believe. I'm no doctor, and I didn't even stay at a Holiday Inn Express yesterday. But I've talked to some people with medical backgrounds since then. They did the test on the field. This is the first thing they do to check for ACL. Usually when those things don't come back positive, we hear something by now. Those things are leaked. We'll hear from the Schefters and the Rappaports of the world that the Seahawks fear that Gray Zabel may have torn his ACL and may be out for the year. We're not hearing those things. In fact, we're hearing some of the opposite. Dr. Chow, the pro football doc on Twitter, who has a pretty good track record of accuracy, said based on video that he's seen, he expects it to be an MCL sprain, which, depending on the severity of it, obviously can be a 4 to 6 week injury. Could be season ending, but there is cause for optimism. Mike McDonald says they'll have it imaged today. But it reminds me of 2006. I was at the game when Matt Hasselbeck got his knee injured, and it was an MCL sprain, and he was out 4 weeks and then was able to come back after that. And I remember seeing him writhing around, slamming the turf in pain after he went down on that play. So potential good news. We might not be without Gray Zabel for the rest of the year. And we'll talk a little bit at the end of this show and kind of wrap it all up with what lies ahead over the next few weeks as far as the schedule goes. But just keep an eye out for that. We'll get an update probably by Mike McDonald's afternoon press conference. That's usually when the timing happens later this afternoon. I think it happens sometime around 3 o'clock Pacific time. Speaking of Matt Hasselbeck, you know what he and Sam Darnold have in common? They've each thrown 4 interceptions in a game. You know who else has? Did a little research last night. Over the last 10 years, that has happened 55 times, including playoffs. And it's not always the Jameis Winstons of the world, although he has done it 6 times, believe it or not. These are some of the quarterbacks that have thrown 4 or more interceptions in a game over the last 10 years. Phillip Rivers, Peyton Manning, Russell Wilson, Matthew Stafford, Lamar Jackson, Baker Mayfield, Joe Burrow, Brock Purdy, Carson Palmer twice, Jared Goff twice. Sam's done it 3 times now in his career. 53 instances total. Of those, only 4 teams won their games, and most of them were lopsided losses. So hats off to the Seahawks defense that they were in this thing and still had a chance to win it at the end. Hell, Russ did it in the NFC Championship game against the Packers. That is obviously one of those wins. They went on to Super Bowl 49 after that. Now, before I get into some of the analysis and what I think happened strategically yesterday, got some feedback from Bryce Coots, quarterback coach, offensive coordinator. Talked to him today. In case you haven't heard, the confidence in Darnold from his teammates did not waver one bit. You could see it on the field, especially after his 3rd and 4th interceptions yesterday. The defense going to him and rallying around him. And they rallied around him after the game, too. If you haven't heard this yet, or if you have heard of it, here is the unedited version of Ernest Jones talking about Sam Darnold after the game.
I mean, Sam's been balling. Like, if we want to try to define Sam by this game or what, man, Sam's had us in every fucking game. So for him to sit there and say, "Oh, that's my fault," no, it's not. It was plays that defensively we could have made plays. There were opportunities where we could have got better stops. Yeah, I mean, like, it's football, man. And he's our quarterback. We got his back, and you got anything to say, quite frankly, fuck you.
That's Ernest talking about his quarterback, and they rallied around him on the field too. They kept the Rams in check for the entire game, holding them to those numbers that I spoke about earlier. Dan Orlovsky tweeted earlier this morning that this is the best defense Matthew Stafford has ever faced. They gave the Seahawks a chance, and to his credit, Sam did bounce back after those 4 interceptions, just kept coming. Didn't shrink in the moment. First, an 11-play, 84-yard touchdown drive. Completed all 6 of his passes for 68 yards to get the touchdown, to get him within 1 score, and then the 10-play, 56-yard drive from their own 1-foot line. My goodness, what an amazing punt to pin him deep. Maybe the best punt I've ever seen, to be honest. Gave him a chance for that potential game-winning field goal. Now let's talk about the why. The biggest one, the Rams had a great defensive game plan. I'm going to let Cooper Kupp tell you about that.
There's some good stuff. We had, they're showing some safeties down, doing some good stuff, and they're showing safeties in the box and being able to show loaded boxes, but then also get into places where they're, dropping into, what essentially ends up being some cover 2 looks. But being able to show, 8-man boxes, which is obviously a big advantage for them. And I think that we didn't execute well enough. And kudos to them. They had a good plan, and we just got to do better as players to make these plays come alive. And we just did a little too late.
Now, we've heard all season long that the Seahawks, the teams were stacking the box against them. It was one of the reasons that they were having a hard time shaking that running game loose. They were facing loaded boxes at one of the highest rates in the league. And we've talked a lot about on this show about when are we going to see a team finally back off, play more coverage against them, and maybe loosen up that running game. And we talked about how the acquisition of Rashid Shaheed could help instigate that a little bit or initiate that. Now, some of that might have been mitigated by the fact that as soon as Shaheed was acquired, Torrey Horton goes out with an injury. And so instead of having two speedsters alongside JSN, now just the one. But there's another layer to this as well. First of all, tip of the cap to Chris Shula. Outstanding game plan from him in his second year as Rams defensive coordinator, likely his last. He's probably going to be one of the hot young coaching candidates for the many openings that will be available during this offseason. Also, their safeties. The safeties they have acquired over the last couple of years were able to execute this game plan to perfection, including, by the way, Cam Kinchens, who the Seahawks scouted extensively a year ago, had him in for a 30 visit even before the draft in 2024. Essentially, and this is one of the things I talked to Bryce Coots about this. Many of you, if you don't know, you may know Bryce from hosting his own Seahawks podcast, the Hawks Eye, but he's also an active coach. He's an offensive coordinator, and he also runs his own quarterback academy. He said, essentially, this was the same game plan or very, very similar to how Chris Shula attacked the Minnesota Vikings last year and forced Sam into, there was the strip sack, but he was sacked 9 times, really knocked him out of his game. He said, but the difference this year was in how he disguised it. Like Cooper talked about, having those safeties look like they're in the box and then dropping back into a too-high shell, but doing it too late in the play clock so that Sam Darnold could audible out of it and get to a run. Brilliant. Not easy. You have to have the right players to be able to execute it. And if you time it just a little bit off, then that does open the opportunity for the offense to audible out of it. But there's another aspect to this as well. Remember how frustrated we all were with the offensive approach against the 49ers? All the things we were promised in the offseason about how this offense would look, physical running game, under center, fullback usage, even run-pass split, balanced offense. There was the one early drive against the 49ers where it all came together, and then they got away from it second, third quarter. A lot more pure drop-back action, which is not Sam Darnold's strength traditionally, but also not a way that you're going to beat good defenses either. Well, it looked a lot like that yesterday as well. And you can win that way if you're built to win that way, and this team isn't. And I primarily am talking about the offensive line there. If you have a dominant type offensive line, you can play that way when you need to. Seahawks aren't quite there yet, and I'm just going to throw this out there as a side note. Many of you are coming at me today and have been saying over the last 12 hours that, see, I told you the offensive line wasn't improved enough. They didn't put enough into it. They should have drafted another right guard, as if adding another rookie to that group would have been an improvement. And to that, I just say this. When is it enough? When is perfection the only answer that you'll be happy with? By every single metric out there, including and maybe most importantly to the eye test, this offensive line is so dramatically improved over what we've seen for the last several years, maybe the last 10 years, that it's hard to quantify. I mean, talking about an offensive line that was ranked in the 30s over the last several years, routinely now in the top 10 in most metrics. Sam Darnold only being sacked 10 times up until that point. And yet that's not good enough for some of you because it's not perfect. I digress. Well, this game looked a lot like the 49ers game. For whatever reason, Clint Kubiak, again, got away from play action. Let's see what that looks like here. This is what happened yesterday. And normally, just for reference sake, 30 to 35% play action is about where Clint Kubiak seems to be in his play calling when this offense is at its best and when his offenses in the past have been at their best. And they've been at or around that mark in every game this year except two. This one and the 49er game. In this game, it was 19% play action. Here are the raw numbers. When calling play action, Sam was 8 out of 9 with a yards per average of 7.9 and just one of the 4 interceptions. On 36 of his dropbacks, there was no play action. Completed 22 of those for a 6.1 yards per average and 3 of the interceptions. 36 pure dropbacks. When the play action is clearly what allows this team to operate at their best. The only way that I can explain that, and I had a long talk again with Bryce today. He just didn't have time, or we were going to record a response from him. But tune in on Wednesday because our Hawks Film Lab segment this week is going to be, what else could it be about? It's going to be about Darnold, the 4 interceptions, and then some of the other plays during the game that didn't result in interceptions that indicate some missed opportunities and frankly, some strategic missteps. But it seems as if the common denominator, Kyle Shanahan, Sean McVay, the Kubiak family, they all go back. They all have worked together. They all share the same DNA, right? Gary Kubiak and Mike Shanahan developed this offense in some ways together. Mike developed it, and then Kubiak was his apprentice, and he took it, and he went on from there and had success. So it all comes from the same place. And we thought week 1 that maybe it was just Clint Kubiak overthinking things, getting too cute. They know what we're going to do on offense and how we're going to attack them. So we need to do something different. They're going to spend the whole week building a game plan to stop our base and what we do well. So we need to do something different. That's fine if, as I said, you're built to be able to do both things. And right now, they're not. Doesn't mean they can't ever. Doesn't mean it's a Clint Kubiak blind spot. This team isn't built to be able to succeed that way right now. Now, I'm not putting this all on Clint Kubiak. Obviously, this is on Sam as well. Bryce said it's 50-50, and I trust his judgment as a coach. I mean, Sam's got to recognize where there are checkdowns. Right? Haven't had a chance to watch the All-22. It wasn't out early this morning when I started putting the show together. I will be watching that. I felt like just from the replay on the jump pass, the final interception, there clearly was an opportunity to go to Ken Walker there. There was another one of the interceptions, I think it was the one to Arroyo where Greg Olsen criticized him for the route, but pointed out that JSN was also open. He's got to be better at that. And he took that on his shoulders. To his credit, I didn't expect anything different from Sam after this game. He talked about how he just needs to throw it into the ground or go to his check down. And everything he did over this offseason was to get better at that internal clock, speeding it up. I talked a lot of my reporting throughout training camp, being there in person, was that I saw that every single day. I saw that internal clock get faster and faster and faster. And it carried over into what we saw in the first 9 games this year. His time to throw metric was better than it's been. Waiting for PFF to update their rankings today. Really want to see the time to throw number yesterday. Seemed like, well, I don't think it seemed like, I think it was obvious that Sam was taking more time, holding on to the ball longer, hitching at times. All 4 of the interceptions were impacted by pressure. He wasn't sitting back in a clean pocket, patting the ball, and then throwing it into a crowd. Again, the offensive line deserves some of this blame as well. I used to be one of those people that could fall asleep anywhere, anytime. It was awesome. But over the last few years, that's changed. If it's outside noise or neighbors in my building, midnight zoomy cat Olympics, or just the effects of age, it's gotten tougher. For years now, I've had to run a fan for white noise, and I've tried melatonin and sleep aids, but I wake up feeling groggy, and that's no way to start the day. But then I was introduced to the Manta Sound Sleep Mask. And this thing, guys, I'm telling you, this is a game changer. It gives me true 100% blackout and has ultra-thin Bluetooth 5.2 speakers built right into the mask. So I can fall asleep to the sound of music, something I've done since I was a kid. And I'm telling you, the sound quality of these speakers honestly blew me away. I was not expecting them to be as good as they are. And now I don't have to deal with earbuds falling out while I toss and turn. Plus, it's got a 20-hour battery life and can be used without the speakers. You simply remove that outer layer held on by Velcro. So if falling asleep at night or just taking a much-needed nap has gotten tougher for you too, check out the Manta Sound Sleep Mask at mantasleep.com. And if you use my promo code FOREVER, they're going to give you 10% off your purchase. So just go to the description of this video, click the link, use the promo code, and enjoy the best sleep you've ever had. But coming out of halftime, I thought was the opportunity to adjust to this. In fact, when they come out of halftime and I can't remember who the on-field reporter was yesterday, but she talks to both of the head coaches and then she relates and paraphrases what they said. She said the thing Mike McDonald talked about is we need to get back to who we are on offense, get back to our MO and who we really are. And they didn't. They came out. First play of the second half, they started with the ball, had an opportunity to cut into that lead. They tried taking a deep shot to JSN, then a 1-yard loss to Kenneth Walker, then the interception on the third play. So 2 of the first 3 plays coming out of halftime were passes. Now, that didn't hurt them because 2 plays later, Kobe Bryant, the great punch out to force the fumble from Puka Nacua. So it didn't immediately hurt them, but it just kind of served as a sign that the adjustments weren't going to be there. 29 running back runs in this one to 44 pass attempts. And the running game was not terrible. It was 4 yards per carry. That's manageable. And you had plenty of time left. The game was not out of hand. And the way that defense was playing, would have liked to have seen some more patience. Bryce talked about some other things too. Where was the screen game? Right? Try to get the running backs involved, get something out quick to them in the flats, get Kenneth Walker in space, give him a chance to gain some yards that way. Now, maybe you could argue that there was a slight adjustment in incorporating the tight ends more. A.J. Barner had 10 catches for 70 yards. JSN still had a good game. He was able to get the ball to him. But I did notice something else as well. This is Jackson Smith-Njigba's pass chart against the Rams yesterday. Almost exclusively from the left side. And this makes a lot of sense because as the game was unfolding and things were going poorly, it just seemed to me like Sam wasn't scanning the field the way he has done so well this year. We've talked about it in almost every game. His ability to get through his reads and adjust his footwork accordingly. Well, now it makes sense when you look at the pass chart. JSN operating primarily out of the left side. And it made me wonder, I didn't think that's what they had done the rest of the season to where the Rams could key on that and have a plan for that. And by the way, another tip of the cap, the Rams secondary, the defensive backs have taken a lot of heat this year. They've been called out as maybe the one Achilles heel that the Seahawks could pick on. They were out hunting for cornerbacks before the trade deadline, ended up getting Roger McCreary. His name wasn't even mentioned yesterday in the game. They played really well. They're much, much better, I think, than advertised. Obviously, Emmanuel Forbes with the great pass breakup on the pass to Rashid Shaheed, but there were many, many other plays too. It just seemed like receivers weren't open. That is as difficult as it was for Sam to read the field with what they were doing in their simulated pressures and bringing those guys up and dropping them into coverage. Man, it was hard just to find an open receiver too. And we can talk maybe a little bit more at length on Wednesday with Bryce in our Hawks Film Lab about whether that's sort of a weakness in Kubiak's game, scheming guys open. But I went back and looked, and look, there are times that it works. This is the pass chart against Jacksonville, where he had 8 catches, 162 yards, and a touchdown, working almost exclusively out of the left side. But it's not the norm. This is what it looks like against the Commanders, working almost exclusively from the right side. And then you look at the Tampa Bay game, 8 catches, 132 yards, and a touchdown. And he's working a little bit more from the right side, but also a couple of key plays on the left side. So not necessarily the way it always is. But couldn't they have adjusted? Shouldn't they move JSN around more once they saw how difficult things were going to be, what tough sledding it was going to be? Now, there may be another aspect to this too, and this is a lot more sort of vague. Sometimes quarterbacks just have their nemesis, right? Peyton Manning couldn't beat Tom Brady for years. Josh Allen 0 for 4 against Mahomes in the playoffs. Lamar Jackson's 1 for 6 against the Chiefs. Joe Burrow, 3 for 6 against the Ravens. Would any of their fans say, Josh Allen's not our guy? Lamar Jackson's not our guy. Joe Burrow's not our guy. Not comparing Sam to those guys. He's not in their tier. But you can make the argument he's in a tier below. Pump the brakes on giving up on anything here. Now, how do we bounce back, right? And there's a history of it, certainly. Some of those examples that I used a little bit earlier. Russell Wilson, we obviously saw him bounce back in that Green Bay game, made some plays late through the winning touchdown pass in overtime to win it and send the Seahawks to their 3rd Super Bowl. But also in that regular season game I mentioned, 2016, it was a Week 13 blowout loss to Green Bay, 38-10. He threw 5 picks, came back over the last 3 weeks of the year to throw 8 touchdowns and 1 interception. Matt Hasselbeck, the season he threw 4 interceptions in a game. Came back the next year and helped lead the team to their first Super Bowl. And even Sam, last year, wasn't 4 interceptions, but his worst game of the year, he had a total meltdown against Jacksonville mid-season, threw 3 interceptions against them. Over the next 8 weeks, he threw only 2. And regardless of what you think about Sam today and how upset you are, and maybe you're even just off the roller coaster, the way he bounced back has to be applauded. Dude has goldfish memory. Didn't allow it to keep him from pulling the trigger, as I detailed earlier with those last couple of drives. There's some bottom lines to be talked about here. This was never going to be a finished product in week 11 of their first year of the offense being put together. 6 new starters, including your quarterback, completely new coaching staff, youngest offensive line in the league. This is a process. The Rams weren't built in a day, and they've been at this for a long time, and this has been a process for them. They've completely rebuilt their offense over the last couple of seasons. McVay threw out his old run scheme and built a new one. They're much more of a power gap team now with bigger, stronger offensive linemen, not the athletic type that we see in these wide zone schemes. 2 years ago, their defense was a sieve. It was a complete liability. It's how you could beat the Rams. Sam is only in his 2nd season of starting for a good team. And what I mean by that is the experience you get of playing in those kinds of games for that type of a team, much different than the experience you're going to get playing for a Carolina, certainly for the Jets early in his career. Matt Stafford could tell you that. The experience that he has gained over the last 5-6 years playing for the Rams, much different than the experience you get playing for the Lions all those years. He also has years of experience on Sam. He's almost 10 years older, has been in the league that long, and it hasn't always gone perfectly for him either. He's having his best season ever now. They built it incrementally. They built the right offense and the right plan, and then they went and got the right defensive coordinator. Well, they didn't go get him. He came up through their own ranks and fixed that side of the ball, but it didn't happen overnight. If you think this was going to, I don't know what to tell you. And Sam never got the opportunity to prove himself in Minnesota that he could bounce back from them. Now, contrary to a lot of popular narratives, they wanted him to. They wanted Sam Darnold back, but they only offered him a 1-year contract. Of course, you're going to take the 3-year deal in Seattle where they want to build around you. So we'll never get to know how the Vikings and Sam would have responded to this. KOC might have had a little bit different plan. And oh, by the way, the offensive line was so bad there and so dysfunctional in those last 2 losses where Sam looked so bad that they got rid of 4 of the 5 players. Cam Robinson no longer there. They got rid of the entire interior offensive line, went and spent a shit ton of money on Will Fries and Ryan Kelly, right? So we'll never get to see. If he had stayed there with that improved offensive line and Kevin O'Connell still, he could be lighting up the league with Brian Flores also fielding a really good defense on the other side of him. So again, this is the beginning. This is really the first adversity now that Sam and Clint have faced together. They have time to figure this out. Another side note, one of the big narratives leading into this game was, oh boy, Clint Kubiak's going to be one and done. We're going to lose him. He's going to become a head coach, to which I tried to push back because of his dry personality and lack of magnetism. Well, I think there's going to be some questions about Clint Kubiak. He's not a slam dunk head coaching candidate. I think he and that staff are going to be around a little bit longer, so they're going to have a chance to figure this out. They have 7 more regular season games this year, obviously. Another opportunity against the Rams, another opportunity against the 49ers. And I think the chances are pretty good they're going to face one of those teams again in the playoffs. Now, if they lose all 4 of those games, 3 of those games, and all in the same manner, then we will have a huge topic of conversation over the course of the offseason, obviously. But the good news, that defense, that Mike Macdonald defense, is going to give them a chance to win each and every single week. McDonald won that battle against McVay, shut that offense down in a way nobody has come close to this year. Matt Stafford came into that game as the only quarterback in NFL history to throw 4 touchdowns, 0 interceptions in 3 straight games, playing the best football of his career, and he looked mediocre yesterday. He looked like a journeyman. And he didn't beat us in the ways that he has always beat us. Nothing in the middle of the field. Not a single completion in the middle of the field over 10 yards. Those dig routes, those in-breaking routes, gone. Devontae Adams, 1 catch, 1 yard. It was for a touchdown, 1 catch, 1 yard for Devontae Adams. Completely took him out of the game. Puka Nacua got his, but we limited the explosive pass plays. A couple of explosive runs early, and then they shut that down. They're going to give him a chance to win week in, week out. This is going to be incumbent now on Clint Kubiak and Sam Darnold adjusting to this and figuring out a way to stay true to themselves while continuing to be deceptive in what they're running out of different formations, being balanced in run pass, being less predictable. I think moving JSN around is a big part of that the next time they face these teams. Now, unfortunately, one of the components of that would be to run the football better, and that may have just gotten a lot tougher if Gray Zabel, well, not if. Gray Zabel's going to miss some time. It's just a matter of, is it going to be weeks or is it going to be the season? That's going to make it a lot tougher. Bryce said he thought Olu Oluwatimi played well yesterday. He may, in some respects, some aspects of the run game, be an upgrade over Jalen Sundell. We detailed that last week in our Hawks Film Lab. If you want something positive to watch, go back and check that out. Christian Haynes was the sub at left guard, as would be expected. And there's a bad rep that everybody's pointing to where Jared Verse from a stand-up position took a running start at him and blew him off the ball on one of those first plays of that last drive, and it made him look bad. And it's not his strength. He just isn't stout. He doesn't have that big anchor, and that is going to be an issue they're going to have to work around. I put it out on Twitter last night, and we'll see what happens this week. But let's not be so sure that Christian Haynes is the answer there at left guard. That is going to be a competition in practice this week. We know how much the coaching staff likes Bryce Cable do, but do they think he's ready? I think they need a guy more stout. And even though in training camp I never saw him take guard reps, Josh Jones has played a lot of guard in his career. He is a big dude, 336 pounds. He's used to playing mostly the left side. I think that's his more comfortable side. I'd like to see them give Josh Jones an opportunity between Charles Cross and Olu Oluwatimi to play left guard. But that's another point for another day. We'll discuss that more as we get through the week. And oh, by the way, Greg Bell is going to be joining me on the show, the fine beat reporter from the Tacoma News Tribune. We'll get his thoughts on some of that tomorrow as well. But the Seahawks have a chance to right the ship and fix this and respond to this over the next 3 games. They will likely be favored in all of these games. At the Titans this week, obviously, a game I'll be attending, by the way. Vikings at home. And as much as most of you might know, I'm a J.J. McCarthy believer, and I think he's got a bright future ahead of him. He's still incredibly young and really inaccurate, and his mechanics are a mess, and he's a gamer, and he's tough, and he comes back from mistakes himself and all of that. But I think at home, in a big game, in a game they're going to need to win against this defense, I think McDonald's going to have some answers. But that'll be maybe the first big test, because Brian Flores is going to watch this game tape, and he's one of the best in the business. That defense is really good. So this week in Nashville, probably a get-right game for the Seahawks. And then you come home, and the Vikings will be a good test. And then you go play Atlanta, a game that looks a lot different today than it might have a couple of days ago. Michael Penix, it's being reported, out for the season with a knee injury. Thankfully for Michael, it's not the knee that he tore his ACL in twice in college. It's the left knee, I believe, and it's not an ACL. It's a bummer for Penix, but he's going to be out, so they'll be facing Kirk Cousins, and maybe even without Drake London. He has a knee injury himself, and he's expected, maybe it's a foot injury. He's expected to miss this week and potentially more, their top receiving threat. And so that's not the same Atlanta Falcons defense that we'd be facing. But again, Raheem Morris, a really good defensive coordinator, and a much improved Atlanta Falcons defense that's able to get some pressure on the quarterback for the first time in years. So not easy games, good tests, but all games that they'll probably be favored in. And then you get that big stretch that's really going to tell us a lot about how this team can learn from what happened yesterday. Back-to-back home games, 4 days apart, with the Indianapolis Colts and Jonathan Taylor and that rushing offense. And then the Rams again, Week 16, Thursday night, under the lights, primetime at home in front of what I'm sure will be a rabid home crowd. So they are going to get another shot. And then Week 18, of course, in Santa Clara against the 49ers. And Brock Purdy looked really good yesterday, says the toe isn't a problem. And so that 49ers game that maybe at a certain point this season, with all the injuries stacking up down there, we might have thought was going to be irrelevant, is likely going to be very relevant, and just another test against Robert Saleh. So we're going to see, can Clint Kubiak and Sam Darnold bounce back from this? If we get the exact same result against the Rams in Week 16 and the 49ers in Week 18, then we can have a discussion about a Clint Kubiak blind spot, a Sam Darnold blind spot, and where they go from there. The story of this team has not been written yet. It never will be in the NFL off just one game. I've been saying this forever. This is a week-to-week league, maybe this year more than ever. You can't win if your quarterback throws the ball to them 4 times. 4 times in 55 games from what I looked up over the last 10 years. Teams have won when their quarterback threw 4 interceptions, and they're usually blowout losses, and yet they had an opportunity. This is one of those things that teams have an opportunity now, a chance to rally around. Don't let the one game blind you. The arrow for this team still pointing up. Let's take one last look at where things stand now. The Seahawks drop into second place at 7-3. The Rams all alone now in first place at 8-2. Obviously, the 49ers are right on their heels at 7-4. And then the point differential, the Seahawks still on top at plus 101, one of the best in the league. The Rams right there at plus 100. The 49ers flipped things around. They were -9. They improved to plus 9. And then the Cardinals, my goodness, fall to -32. And we're back to talking about big changes there as well. Before we go, let me tell you about the Sleeper app real quick one more time. Decent week for me and my picks. I went 9-5 in the Seahawks Forever Sleeper League. It's the best sports app out there. I'm not just saying that because they're a sponsor and I'm proud that they are. It's true. If you were somewhere yesterday where you couldn't get to a TV to follow this game, they have the best play-by-play real-time tracking of any app out there. It happens in real time and you can react to it in real time. And I'm sure there was a lot of strong reactions on the Sleeper app to those plays. A lot of thumbs down on the interceptions, and you can even chat with other users. There's fantasy sports, there's daily fantasy. You can pick games as we do in the Seahawks Forever Pick'em League. And then there's games of skill. And if that's what you're into, they're going to get you started in the best way possible. They're going to give you $20 free right off the top without even having to make a deposit if you use the promo code FOREVER. If you do want to make a deposit, they're going to match the first one up to $100, 100%. Terms and conditions do apply. Check out the Sleeper app today, and don't forget to use that promo code FOREVER. As I said, tomorrow on the show, Greg Bell from the TNT will be joining me to give his thoughts on the mood of the locker room, how much of what he heard behind the podium was just kind of lip service, the things you say after a loss, and how much he's been around this team every single day since the offseason. How does he think this team will bounce back? We're going to turn the page tomorrow and start looking ahead to the Tennessee Titans. In the meantime, if you would please subscribe, hit that thumbs up button. And if you want to be notified of all the content I put out on YouTube, hit that bell button. Otherwise, follow me on Twitter at Seahawks Forever. That's where I'll always link any of my material. And go to nwforever.com. That's where everything lives under one roof. Video, audio, Substack, my writing, Discord, and my Mariners content. Thank goodness for the Mariners yesterday, as they came out with some good news while we were all licking our wounds over the Seahawks loss. Josh Naylor signing a 5-year deal to stay as a free agent. I'll be recording a show later today. Look for that over on Mariners Forever, and you can get over to that YouTube page and subscribe there as well. Keep your head up, Seahawks fans. The season is by no means over. Every single goal that the Seahawks want to accomplish, including the ultimate goal, still ahead of them, still attainable. That doesn't change because of one bad game. Remember, forever and always, go Hawks. Thanks for watching.